Hey everyone, Boardgame Brody here with Meeple Mountain. I have a new copy of Catapult Castle, a dexterity game by Imperial Publishing. This is a fun dexterity game about using a catapult to launch boulders at other players' castles. I'm here to tell you what you need to know about this game. First, the theme or the story as to how this war began goes like this. You happily serve as a king or queen of your kingdom, protecting your citizens with your magnificent castle. Just like the state of Colorado currently, everyone wants to move to the land nearby, and they have decided to move in, building their own castles next door to you. They brought their money and their resources because their castle might even be higher than yours. And that's not fair, so inevitably, war has broken out. Whenever a castle knocks down a tower from their neighbor, they use the debris to build a new one for themselves. The object of the game is to end it with the most towers left on your player board. To start, each player will take one of the player boards, and they are all placed out edge to edge to make a big board. In a 2 to 4 player game, it looks like this, and in a 3 player game, it will look like this. Each player will take a set of cards of one of the characters and shuffle them to use during the game. All players will place one of the castle towers on each square shown on their player board. In a 3-player game, in addition, each player will take a 5th tower. They will place their top card face down on the innermost tower and place the 5th tower on top of that card. All 36 boulders will then be placed in a general supply for all to use. Players take turns by placing the catapult down, playing any card that they would like from their hand, and then shooting their ammo, aiming it at their neighbors, trying for it to land inside of one of the towers. Now, to go in a little more detail, when placing a catapult, it needs to be placed at the corner of your map furthest from the center of the player boards. And the catapult cannot overlap the player board at all. You are also allowed to place the game board under the catapult while shooting it to help you with those high towers. Cards can be played from your hand to give you extra benefits like shooting 2 boulders on your turn, throwing a boulder with your hand instead of using the catapult, placing a card on top of one of your towers to block enemies from stealing your tower, or there is a card that when played and you shoot a boulder inside of a tower that is on top of another tower, instead of only taking that top tower, then you take the entire stack. Now after you choose a card, it's game time, as you will take one of the boulders from the supply and load it onto the catapult. You'll pull back on the arm and release it to shoot it. If you miss, your turn is over, and the ammo is placed back into the supply, and the catapult is passed to the player on your left. If you hit by shooting it inside of one of the towers, you immediately take that tower, never removing any boulders inside, and you'll place it on one of the empty squares on your board. If you have a full layer of towers, you'll take the top card from your deck, place it on top of one of the towers that you already have, and then place the new tower on top of it. If the tower you hit is on top of another one, then you will only take that one tower unless you have that special card to do more. The player whose tower got hit will also draw a card from their deck to place into their hand to use when it's their turn. Remember, in this game you will never remove the ammo from the tower. It remains inside till the end of the game. Players will keep taking turns until every single boulder has landed inside one of the towers. And when there is no ammo left, the game ends. Scoring is done by counting the number of towers on each player's board. The player with the most wins the game. If tied, the player with the most ammo inside of their tower wins. If tied again, the player with the most cards in their hand wins. The game is simple enough for kids to understand, and yet it's still enjoyable for adults to play because it requires good aim of that catapult. This game has some similarities to another game, but this game does better at some and adds more strategy into the game. The towers are already divvied out at the beginning of the game, and players are specifically targeting a player each and every turn. The cards give better actions for the player to get an advantage instead of cards that are played on another to interfere with their shot. The catapult launches very well, and the spring mechanism within it makes it hard to pull back at the same place every time, so it requires skill to do well in this game. That way someone can't just figure out the catapult and hit shot after shot every single time. Well, you can, but it would require a lot of practice and skill. You don't want to pull it back all the way because it will launch too far, and you don't want to pull it just under, you'll undershoot it. So you need to adjust your shot every time, pulling the arm of the catapult down just about midway, depending on where you're aiming. Ultimately, if you want to play a dexterity game that requires both skill and some strategy, this is your game. So take a shot at your family and friends in Catapult Castle by Imperial Publishing. Again, this is Board Game Brody. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stick around and check out some other board game reviews to see what you might want to get to the table.